So thank you for joining us today for our webinar. It's about soft skills and it's quick tips to make you a well-rounded communicator. Our special guest speaker today is Jennifer Fitzgerald-Hanson. And what I'm going to do, my name is Tina Abernathy. I'm hosting today. Some of you may have seen me before in past webinars, but I'm just going to introduce myself and let you know a little bit about myself and Jen, and also a little bit about JN Software. Jen, can you hear me all right? Everything look good? You can see my screen? Good. Okay, awesome. Just shout out to me if you can't see something, please. So my name's Tina Abernathy, and I'm accounts manager at JN Software and CompuEase. I started my career out in community development and counseling, and that's morphed over the years into many different aspects of business and sales. I've been involved with land development, marketing, and many new business startups. I really do have a passion for working with people and businesses, which really helps me in my role here at JN Software. And I'll speak a little bit about that a little bit further on, just how we really want to help people and companies and businesses to thrive. In my personal life, when I'm not busy with my 3 teenage daughters, I enjoy fitness, cooking, and travel. Well, I miss travel anyway. Jennifer, she attended Braxham Hall School, and she also followed up at the University of Toronto, where she received her BA in English and Public Administration. And she specializes in soft skills and professional skills, executive leadership and outlook training, as well as developing specialized, customized training to fit her clients' needs. And she's really trained in a wide array of industries. Very recently, she has added another degree, and that is in psychology, and that just to learn why people do what they do. And when Jen's not busy with her 3 children and her husband of 30 years, she enjoys reading leadership books, being with her dog Levi as an animal therapy team, and as well as kayaking on the Rouge. So that's us, and I wanted to tell you a little bit about who is JN Software and CompuEase, just for some of you who may not know. So these are sister companies that provide services throughout Canada and the US. So JN Software Consulting has been around since 2002, and this company is the one that offers the services Canada-wide and through the US. We do training, online public classes, always with a live instructor, and we do private, online, and on-site training. Obviously, at the moment, everything is online. We also do consulting and database development. That's a large part of that company. CompuEase, on the other hand, that is servicing Ottawa and the National Capital Region. We've been in business since 1988, and we do on-site public training at our downtown Ottawa Training Center, and we do private one-on-one training. Again, my note says on-site or online. Of course, everything is online right now, and it's been wonderful. What sets us apart as a training company? Well, we always offer fast, quality customer service. We have highly skilled, experienced, and professional trainers. We have a public class schedule, which I will show you as well. And we have classes that are guaranteed to run. So if you're the only person that has booked our public training session, we are running that class. We always have live instruction, and we never have anything pre-recorded. We have a learn or come back for free policy for the public classes. So if you feel like you didn't get what you needed to from that class, you can come back and take that class for free. And we always offer 24/7 after training support for our software training. And we offer both software and professional skills training. And today, our webinar, we're going to be talking about professional skills. To give you an idea of the array of courses that we do offer, of course, software, we do Microsoft training, which is, of course, Outlook, Excel, Word, PowerPoint, SharePoint. Right now, we do a lot of Teams, Microsoft 365 training. We do all the Adobe training, so Illustrator, Acrobat, Dreamweaver. We also do programming and specialty courses as well. And we do a lot of professional skills training. And in fact, Jennifer is actually one of our trainers, and she does offer quite a few of the professional skills courses. We do personal development like anger management, stress management. We do time management courses. So it's really interesting. These are really interesting. It's like working, it's not just about learning how to use Outlook, but it's working smart with Outlook. We do business development courses, team building courses such as building better teams, which is excellent. The communication skills, those ones are very popular as well. Conflict resolution, dealing with difficult people. We do our leadership skills with hiring for success and coaching and mentoring. And we also do our writing skills. Obviously, we're going to talk a little bit about that today with communication and writing. And those are really popular and they're really interesting courses. I highly recommend them. For anybody, and if you've joined us before, you know about this, and I do encourage you to take advantage of it. We do offer a free training consulting audit. So it's a very quick little consultation with one of us, and we just kind of get to know you a little bit better. I did actually forget to introduce that we have Melanie today. She's our tech support person. So if anybody right now, before we jump into this webinar, if anyone's having any problems, if they just want to make note of it in the chat, Melanie will help you out. But she's also going to put a link in there, and that will take you to where you can register for a free audit. But of course, you can contact us in any way, email, phone us, whatever, message us on social media, and we'd be happy to help you out. This is where we really thrive. We offer so many free resources. So we really just like to be able to kind of share those, sometimes we're so busy, we don't know where to look to find all these blog articles, but we do spend a lot of time and energy putting this together to help people, and we really love to have people take advantage of it. So of course, contact us. We don't take a lot of your time, and we just kind of let you know what we can do to potentially help you. Our last webinar, and I'll show you later on before you leave today, how you can register for future webinars, how you can see our past webinars. Our last webinar was really great. So for booking like your team or booking groups for courses, and that's another thing that we have a lot of people asking questions on, how to do that. And so that's a really great webinar, very quick webinar that you can kind of have a look at as well. So speaking of upcoming webinars, we have one once a month. Next month, it's Making Business Intelligence Simple. In January, we have Microsoft Project. February, the Quick Start Guide to Visio. And in March, OneNote can do that. So before you leave today, I'm just going to show you how to register. I mean, I'm sure you registered for today, but if you wanted to go on our site, you can register for all of them. And don't forget that if you weren't able to attend, if you're not able to attend, but you register, you're going to receive the link so that you can watch it in your own time as well. When you watch it in real time, it gives you the opportunity to ask us questions and to hopefully have our presenter be able to answer them in real time. But you can always reach out to us anytime to ask us any questions at all. So this is our outline of our webinar today. I'm going to stop talking and stop sharing my screen. I'm going to let Jen take over.
Okay. So Tina, can you see my screen?
I sure can.
Okay, perfect. All right, welcome everybody. Glad you're here. I'm in Toronto today. I hope everybody's in someplace better weather than I am, I guess, because it's pretty gray and miserable right where I am. If you'd like to put in the chat where you're dialing in from, that would be great, just to give us an idea of how far and wide we are reaching people today. And you're welcome to tell me if you've got nice sunny weather. Like I said, I don't. So today we're going to do a 1-hour webinar, and we're going to talk about tips to make you a better or more well-rounded communicator. And what that's going to look like is we're going to highlight just 3 of the workshops that JNN Software and CompuEase offer. All right. But first, I want to take you through a couple of questions to be asking yourself. Sort of you know, where you're at in your communication level now and how you can get better. So the question comes up, why do we want to communicate? What's the point in taking this course? What am I going to get out of it? And more importantly, why do I want to get something out of it? So there's a few reasons listed on the slide here for why we want to communicate and communicate better. Obviously, it's to get our message across. I have some thoughts, some feelings, and I need to get that across to you. So I need to communicate that to you, whether that's in-person communication, whether it's text, email, over the phone. We all have to get our message across. In some cases, we're trying to share information. So we're sharing information perhaps because we're on a team, we're on a same work team, and we're looking to gather information and make decisions on it, or utilize that information in some way to go forward with our business. Potentially, I may have some information that I want to use to influence you. So I want to change your mind, or maybe you haven't made a decision yet, but I want you to sort of come to my side, and I need to communicate that information to you in a way that I'll be able to influence you. More basically, definitely on a personal as well as professional side, you have wants and needs, and you need to express that to someone else. So again, it doesn't matter what form of communication it takes, but we need to be able to communicate that well. Perhaps I have questions to ask. That's a reason for communicating. And perhaps I don't ask questions well. So learning how to ask different types of questions and what situations require you to ask a question a certain way in order to get a better result. And of course, developing social relationships. That's a huge part, especially with what we're going through right now. But every time you communicate, you have an opportunity to better the relationship that you have with someone else. But unfortunately, you also have that opportunity to, if things go sideways, that the relationship doesn't get better or stronger. So what's the point of being a good communicator? What's the point of getting better at communicating? Well, the first and foremost is, I would say, it's to build trust and to have better relationships. When we communicate better, we trust better, we are more willing to believe, we don't question as much, because we have that foundation of trust, all right? We are able to, with better communication skills, to deliver as well as to understand information more quickly and more accurately, and also able to remember it longer, studies have shown. Again, in order to make a good decision, the more information we have, the better our decision is. So the better that information is communicated to us, the better our decision is. And again, personal or professional, it doesn't really matter. Preventing and resolving problems is a huge part of being a good communicator. If we aren't a good communicator, if you can think of someone in your life who is not particularly a good communicator, or that you don't communicate well with, there tends to be more likely a chance to have more unresolved issues or problems. Obviously, providing clarity and direction. If we think about this in a professional sense, if I'm a manager and I'm trying to give direction and work to people, the better I am at communicating, the better that is going to be received, because I'm going to be more clear with my direction. Right? Increasing engagement. The only way you can increase engagement is through communication. So the better your skills, the better you can engage your staff, or if we go to personally, family, friends, that sort of thing. Productivity increases once communication skills are increased, so we're all good for that. And definitely for promoting team building, because again, we go back to number one, building trust and better relationships. that's the foundation for building better teams, right? Remember, if you have any questions, please put them in the chat, and we'll get to them at the very end, right? So today we're actually going to focus in on 3 of the workshops that are being offered. The Becoming a Better Writer, Communicating with Briefing Notes with Precision, and Getting the Most Out of Reports. But I should really mention at this point that we offer a lot of communication workshops. So the first couple of slides I showed you actually apply to a wide range of workshops. So we have communication skills and strategies. We have dealing with difficult people and conflict resolution, customer service. All of these are communication-based workshops. So ideally, if you're looking to get better at your communication skills, one of the things you'd like to look at is, what area of communication do I need to focus on? And then take an appropriate workshop to deal with that issue. So realize, again, although we're only talking about these 3 particular workshops today, a lot of what we say flows into other workshops as well. All right, so let's keep going. So what happens if you're in an organization and typically the people who work there don't have good communication skills? So we're dealing with employees typically at potentially any level within the organization who just don't have good communication skills. So what you'll notice is there's a lot of overlap in this slide, but let's start at the top. So decreased collaboration, meaning people aren't talking to each other, ideas aren't being shared. And when that happens, when we don't have that ability to collaborate with one another, a sense of trust is lost from employee to employee or employee to manager. It doesn't matter where on the ladder you are. And when you have that decreased trust, you end up having a lot of staff turnover. Staff turnover is very costly for any organization, simply because, looking for people to hire, training people to hire, there's a lot of time and money spent in that. So another problem that happens when you have employees that aren't good at communicating is their own individual morale, as well as morale of entire departments, end up being lowered. And what this does is you end up having people who have increased stress and frustration levels, which again leads to increased staff turnover. So it's amazing that all we need to do to help bring up these numbers is to just become better communicators, right? Talk to people, listen to people. So another area where it affects organizations is in productivity. Obviously, productivity goes down if people aren't communicating, if people aren't collaborating, and if there isn't good morale. So we're back to higher stress, higher frustration, higher turnover. Creativity is lowered, right? Again, because people aren't talking to each other, because people don't trust each other, because people's morale is so poor. When that happens, we're back to increased stress and frustration, higher turnover. This next one is really important from an organizational point of view. When people aren't talking to each other, all the information isn't being passed along, gathered. And if I'm in a position where I have to make a decision and my team isn't good at communicating with each other as well as with me, then the decisions I'm going to make are going to be based on potentially less information than I could have if I had a group that was a really good group of communicators. So the less information I have, the poorer decisions I make. And that costs money. One way or another, it costs money. It's definitely going to cost time, but it could cost a lot of money, right? From an individual perspective, what's in it for me? What if I'm a poor communicator? Why should I bother changing? I'm happy the way I am. Well, chances are, as a poor communicator, you're not going to be promoted, right? You're going to be stifled in the position that you're in right now. You're not going to move up. So we're back to, personally having lower morale, but definitely having increased stress and frustration because you feel that you should be promoted. That being said, we're back to increased staff turnover, right? And the last one I'm going to talk about for now is about our client base. If I'm a client working with your organization and I feel as though I'm working with people who don't communicate well, chances are I'm going to move to another organization, right? I'm going to move to another company that I feel gives me better service, right? And as Tina mentioned right at the beginning, that's one of the things that JN Software and CompuEase pride themselves on is their customer satisfaction, how they're always there for you and they're always available to help you make decisions about workshops that you need, etc. So again, to take that last slide and put it into an image that maybe puts it in better perspective for you, with effective communication, you're better at problem solving, you make better decisions, your organization is more productive, and an organization is the big part, but then we come down in each division, each team is more productive. There's a far more consistent workflow. You have that better relationship with customers. And keep in mind, that's including customers that are outside your organization, as well as perhaps you work with another division or another area within your organization. They're your customers too. So having that better relationship is really important. Better communicators have better control, obviously a better professional image, and a better response from everyone that you're dealing with. So really, communication is the basis for moving your organization forward. Right? Again, any questions, just put them in the chat, please. So let's talk about that first workshop about becoming a better writer. What can I throw at you right away to tell you about how to become a better writer? I've got 4 quick and easy tips for you. To become a better writer, you have to become a better reader. And you have to read. Now, I've got to tell you, I really prefer that you not include fiction in this, because those, romantic historical romances are lovely to read, but they're not going to necessarily make you a better writer. I'm happy if it's a newspaper, if it's a blog, if it's leadership books, anything that's nonfiction. And why is that important? Well, the more you read, the more you pick up, and the more your brain deals with repetition. And that in turn allows you to become a better writer. So you've got to read more to write better. That's a really simple equation. The next one is you have to write. So it's one thing to sit at your desk and say, I really would like to write. I'd like to become a better writer. But if you don't actually write, you're not going to get any better, right? Again, pretty basic. But then number 3 is a little bit taking it to the next level. And that one is you must want to write. So when something lands on your desk and you have to write it, you're asked to write a report, or you're asked to write something for your boss, you sit there and grumble about it. Oh, I'm a terrible writer. Oh, this is going to be awful. It's going to take me forever. And you procrastinate on it and you think about it and you have all these negative thoughts going on in your head. That's not good for you because you're going to start believing those things. So wanting to have that urge to want to write is another big step in becoming a better writer. And the last one is you need to get feedback, and feedback from a safe source. So obviously when you write for work, there's going to be a boss or a coworker or something who's going to read the work. Maybe they're going to edit it for you. But always have in mind that the person is trying to make your work better, and you just need to learn from it. It's not, oh, that's Mary and she just doesn't like me, so she's cutting up my work, right? Even if it's helpful for you to find someone to look it over before you send it to that boss person, maybe that's an option. But it's also possible that there isn't enough time to do that, right? I'm also going to throw in a little something else, is when I recognize that there are certain people that are great writers, and I like to read all their stuff. And part of that goes into number one with the must read. Like, I always try to find things written by people I enjoy reading. And I think they have really good quality communication skills. So being able to identify that, maybe everybody has somebody already. Why don't you put that in the chat too? If you think you've got a really great writer that you enjoy reading, put that in the chat. That might help all kinds of people that are here on the webinar. I'll give it some thought. Maybe I'll come up with someone by the end of the webinar too. I hadn't planned that question, so we'll see where that takes us. So we're going to talk about, again, being a better writer. I'm going to give you a little example here. So this would be an email, and my first response when I look at this email is, boy, that's a big paragraph. There isn't a whole lot of white there. Okay, but let's go through this. Subject line is IT PowerPoint presentations help. So it's written to Dave. Dave, our IT department needs to improve their presentations. I notice they use too many technical phrases and lose the attention of the clerical staff. One IT member speaks way beyond the average layman's understanding, while the others click through their overhead presentations that are neither interesting, clear, or to the point. They all need to improve their delivery. I do not believe we can deliver the message effectively with their current skill set. I recommend the whole IT department attend presentation skills, a one-day course offered by JN Software. So at the end, there's a little bit of help being offered, but it's pretty negative all the way through, right? Let's take a look at the next one. So I'd like to think that the first thing you notice is, oh, there's some white space in there, right? There's some formatting. Doesn't that make it easier to read? Because the fonts are the same, the sizes are the same, but there's more white, right? That's a big help for you. Don't write in those big block paragraphs. But then let's look at the subject line. Book. So the verb is in capital letters. Book presentation workshop for IT department by year end. And there's a deadline, right? So good morning, Dave. It's a little bit nicer of an opening. To help us shorten the learning curve for the clerical staff, I recommend sending the IT department to the presentation skills course offered by JN Software. The cost would be $595 per person. They will learn how to clarify their message for all levels of the organization, engage the audience, and use visuals more effectively to enhance their presentations. Is there money in your training budget? Thank you, Jen. Totally different tone to that email. More positive. I'm trying to help. We're shortening a learning curve. We want people to clarify their messages. We want people to be engaged, use visuals more effectively. Those two emails are night and day, and yet effectively they cover the same thing. So the one on the right-hand side, I want you to see as being, the better writer. Someone who's given thought to the person who's going to actually read that message. We use a term in writing called reader focused, meaning how is what I'm writing going to be perceived by the reader, right? That one is going to get my attention. The other one, I feel like I've been bashed. I may read it and just move on to something else, right? So just something to think about, right? Very different messages. Sorry, very different emails, but the same message. All right. So what are the things that we're going to cover when we're talking in this workshop for being a better writer? Effectively, we talk about the 4 C's, being clear, concise, complete, and correct. There's actually a 5th C, which is courteous, so we want to throw that one in as well. We talk about word agreement. So word agreement is making sure that singular verbs have singular subjects and plural verbs have plural subjects. that sort of thing, making sure pronouns are correct. Then we talk about active and passive voice. So active voice, to give you an example, is I mailed the letter today. Passive voice would be the letter was mailed today. There's places for both, but that's discussed during the workshop. Word usage. So that's a lot of words in the English language. We have morphed them into different meanings, and they aren't necessarily correct. There are correct usages for each word, but we've stretched that. So the best one I can give you is the difference between the two words fewer and less, right? We tend to think of those words as being interchangeable. But fewer is actually used when you can count something, when you can actually give a number to it. So fewer problems, fewer items, that sort of thing. But less is used when you're referring to something that is not countable. So less trouble, less time, for example. So where you see this used incorrectly is in the grocery stores, because in the grocery stores, they usually have that line for 8 items or less, right? 10 items or less, 12 items or less, depends on your grocery store. But it should actually be 8 items or fewer, just so you know. That's what I mean by language morphing, right? Somebody made it incorrect, it's continued and goes on and on and on. Moving on to punctuation. So that's grammar. We're going to talk in the workshop about periods, semicolons, exclamation marks, question marks, colons, capitalization, the wheres and whens and how we use that. And that part is not as dry as it sounds, just so you know. And then there's a part on effective emails. So what sort of things can we do to make our emails better, right? And for a lot of people, better means a better response rate. How do I get people to respond more to my emails? And the trick, if you will, is write better emails and you get a better response. All right, so moving along. Again, this is just the explanation of the clarity, conciseness, and such. Clarity meaning that what you're trying to accomplish gets done. Concise, you do it in as few words as possible. You're as clear as possible. We talk about not putting fluff into our work. That's what we want to avoid. Being complete, we have everything that is necessary for this piece of correspondence, whether it be attachments, charts, graphs, whatever. Correctness is obviously proper grammar and such. And then courteous, meaning we're respectful and considerate of the reader. All right, so first email on the left. Denise, it was great seeing you again last week. I think everyone involved had a great day. I spoke with Janice and she says to say hi and call her. We should do it again sometime. So we're 1, 2, 3, 4 sentences in, and we haven't talked anything about what the purpose of the email is, right? So then we get to the next part. In order to reserve the conference center and hotel for the annual sales meeting, someone has to get a written quote regarding food costs, room, etc. There's that word that should not go into an email. Someone should, right? Someone has to get. Someone who? The person I'm emailing this to, Denise, or someone else? Don't know. But unless you actually point out who that someone is, chances are everyone's going to think somebody else is doing it, right? Please get back to me if you have any questions. So again, not a horrid email, but let's compare it to the one on the right. The one on the right, again, there is more white space. So strictly a nice, easy formatting change makes it easier to read, understand, and our brain even remembers it better when it's formatted like this. So, good morning, Denise. So that's a little bit of relationship building, right? The hotel for the convention still has to be reserved. Would you please request, you, meaning you, Denise, would you please request a written quote on what the rooms and food will cost? please ask that it be emailed to me at, there's all the information necessary, so there's the person's email, by Friday at noon, thanks. Okay, so much clearer, more succinct, and just easier to read, right? So we're clear, concise, and we are complete. So moving on to the next workshop that we're going to look at, we're going to talk about the briefing notes with precision and communicating them. So in this workshop, we're going to cover all the different things that you need to have in your briefing note to make it better to be understood, right? So remember, that was one of the reasons why we communicate, to be understood by others. So again, we need to be concise. So we saw that similar in the better writing. We need to be concise here. We need to be analytical. We need to have very selective content. We need to be succinct. Briefing notes should be impersonal, and they should be very reader-centered. You heard me mention that term before. So you think about it as the person who is receiving that information. We talk about the 4 types of briefing notes in the workshop: ones that are strictly information-based, some that are directional or decision-based, some that are in a response to something, and often they can be meaning prep. All right. So with accuracy, brevity, and clarity, we can get a well-constructed and delivered briefing note. All right. The material and the audience going together allows us to have good interest and benefit, and outcome. I would go so far as to say that. All right. So what not to use in a briefing note. So in other words, what not to do. All right. Don't use complex words. All right. Pleonasm is the complex, is the big word for just saying complex words. All right. So we don't use complex words. We don't put in a lot of adjectives and adverbs, right? We're being succinct. We're being clear. We're using the least number of words possible. Run-on sentences, they're a big no-no, right? And not having things in passive voice, all right? If you were to put all of those things together, you end up with a really stuffy, dense, very confusing briefing note. So we want to avoid that. So interestingly enough, last week, I had something drop into my inbox that talked about how you reward your reader. And it was a post put up in the Harvard Business Review. And it came down to the things that we teach in this workshop. And the idea is to keep it simple, right? Don't use complex words. Don't use unnecessary adjectives and adverbs. Don't use run-on sentences, right? Keep it very specific, right, for what it is that you need. Keep it stirring, so have something so that people are involved, are interested. Keep it social, potentially, as well as keep it story-driven, all right? That last one may not apply as much to briefing notes as it does to reports and just generalized writing, but I thought it was interesting that I was getting ready to deliver this webinar, and this is what dropped into my inbox. So all of those things we talk about in the workshop. So here's a chart. I'm not going to read through all of it. You guys, as I'm talking, you folks can look at it. But the listing on the left are very fluffy, dense expressions that we find ourselves being in the habit of using. We'll definitely read them. If you were to pick up a newspaper, you would see some of these for sure today. But instead, what I'd like you to do is try to pare those expressions down and look at what's on the right-hand side. And in a lot of cases, you're down to just one word, right? So if I pick out a couple, a number of, and instead you could just use the word some, or a few, or many, or actually give a number, right? On a monthly basis, you can just say monthly. In order to, just use the word to, right? So one of the things I'm suggesting for you to do going forward in your writing is, after you write something, go back and start striking words out that you don't really need, so that you can still get your message across, but it's clear and concise. All right. So, in order to be successful at communicating your briefing notes precisely, define the need first, identify the target of your audience, so what they need and who they are, right? Find a way to captivate them and communicate your message effectively. And part of that is about modulation, how you speak, getting over your nervousness, that's part of it too. Identify any errors that could happen and avoid them, the common errors, that's what we talk about in the workshop. Draft and prepare the message, and then deliver it with confidence. Now, I would say maybe between those last two boxes, there would be another box that says edit. Edit, 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 right? All right. And these are just all the things that we cover in the workshop. So the errors to avoid, redundant words and phrases, how to edit, good tips, variety of different ways to edit, the actual organization, how to keep it simple, logical development and flow, and then the modulation, how you speak. All right. So talking about reports, why do we write reports? Why do organizations need reports? This is similar to when I asked you, why do we communicate, right? So I think understanding the why before you do something is a really important part of doing it well, okay? So in some cases, we write reports just to communicate information or research or some sort of analysis of what's going on. In some cases, it's about data that has been found, and maybe there's a change that needs to be made, or maybe it's just to approve that the organization is going in the right direction. A lot of times it's taking something that's very complex and boiling it down to a format that's easier to understand for a different type of audience, right? So we're going to, in that report, we're going to change the words and the wording and the structure so that a different audience with a different knowledge base can understand it. Maybe it's a report to have someone make a decision on, right? So to provide all the necessary information. Maybe it's to influence and persuade someone. Maybe there's a problem and something needs to be looked at. That's why the report's being done. Maybe it's because something has to be formally recorded for the organization and it's done in the form of a report. And perhaps something needs to be updated, and this is the why for the change that's necessary in the organization. Right? So in the workshop, we talk about the different stages of writing a report, about the investigation and the thoroughness of that investigation, planning, how to plan, various stages of planning, of course, the actual writing, which could take the forms of discussing formatting, as well as order, and then revising, because nothing is ever written just once. It's edited and revised over and over again before it's ready to be delivered. So we also talk about the problems of report writing. Where do reports go wrong? In which case that could be at the investigation stage. So the investigation has been done poorly. Maybe it's just movement between paragraphs or sections of a report. It might be I call the transitional connections. And what I mean by that is, because you know everything, you can jump from one thought to the next thought, but someone, the reader, doesn't understand that. They're missing that piece, but it's because you have that extra knowledge. So it's recognizing that and being able to identify it and then fix that. Definitely being too wordy, right? We've got the common errors of spelling and grammar and word usage as well, and perhaps not being able to follow the logic. Right? So again, a lot of that comes down to being reader focused, being more reader focused. So all in all, for this workshop, we will talk about preparing different reports and proposals, whether they're to give information, persuade, or just provide information. How to review your work to make sure that all the C's are covered. Give application to your real work, what you're actually working on. There'll be time spent with that. How to put charts and graphs and how to make them really add punch to a report. We'll talk about persuasion or influence, and then you'll go away with a checklist of practical application tips for when you are writing your report. Right. We will also talk during the workshop about the different steps of writing a proposal. I don't need to read out each one for you, but you can read the slide. But we start at, finding your objectives, and of course, always end with proofreading and editing. But we'll take you through each of those steps and, flush it out in a great deal of detail. Remember, if you have any questions, put them in the chat. And I'm thinking, yeah, I think that's it, Tina. So I'm going to stop sharing at this point. Okay.
Good. Okay, I'm just going to share my screen right now. And I think it's really important for everyone to know how to contact us. But I think before you take any questions, I just really want to show how people can go online and kind of look at the outlines and look at booking if they want to schedule a course online. I think that's probably really important information. So if we were to go onto our JN software site, I'm just going to give you a really quick kind of intro to our site. So let's just talk about booking courses first of all. We do have a virtual public schedule right here, right up front, but you can also go down to our menu, look at all our courses. Let's look at our writing course, okay, because we're talking about communication and writing today. If you click on there, it kind of lets you sort of compare the different courses that we do offer. And you can, like, what your goal would be and when our upcoming classes are, you can click on for more information to see the actual outline. And you can kind of have an idea if this is what you're looking for. And then you could go ahead and register right from that page. If you read our outlines and you're feeling like, yeah, I want a bit of this and I want a bit of that from your other course, this is where like a private class can really come in handy, because we can really customize what you need. When you take a public course, we go over the outline, but of course it's a live instructor. You're able to ask your questions. It's really wonderful that way. Before I leave the JN site, I just want to show you that, as I mentioned before, you can click on this icon here for free webinars. And you can just register now to go to any of our upcoming webinars. And if you want to look at previous webinars, we actually have them all on our YouTube channel. But you can click on here and it will take you right to YouTube. As I mentioned earlier, the organizing training, that's a really great one if you're looking to book training for your team or your staff. And we also, here's our little, like, help with during COVID, a lot of people are working from home. We do offer free resources, and we have many blog articles. We have a whole working from home series that's really interesting. It's a 6-part series. So you can go in there if you have some time on our CompuWe site. So if you're across Canada and you're in the US, and I think there's actually quite a few people joining us from the US today, which is wonderful, you would contact us through JN Software. If you are in the Gatineau or Ottawa area, CompuWe's, but you can call us at any of our phone numbers, you can email us, and we'll sort it out for you, so don't worry about that. With our CompuWe site, you could just go down again to our course list. Again, let's do professional skills today. We'll go to writing. And you're just going to scroll down. You can look at the calendar to see the date of our courses. You can register now. Click on the course. And again, there you go. You can see the full outline. See if that makes sense to you. You can register now. So again, many ways to register for courses. So I'm just going to bring you back to the screen, and you can contact us. Following this webinar, we will connect with you and we'll send you the link for the recording. And Jen, I'm just going to hand this over to you if you want to actually go onto the chat and just, I know we have a few questions in there, so if you want to go ahead.
Yeah, no problem. So thank you everybody for where you're from. It's always great to see how far and wide we're going. That Patricia Martin in the Caribbean, yeah, I'm not sure I'm liking you too much because your weather is way better than mine. Judy asks, how can we get the presentation? If you're meaning this presentation, you would have to contact JN Software to see whether or not they will give it to you or not. I don't know. It might not be possible. Someone asks about what I think about Grammarly. Here's my thing. I never like to hand over control to something else, especially something that I'm not familiar with. So, you know, maybe I should keep my thoughts to myself. It's just, I love that in Word, for example, you know, they'll do some spelling mistakes for you. They'll correct some spelling mistakes, and they'll correct, or they'll make you look at whether or not you've used there, or there correctly, right? So I think that's great. So, you know, maybe I don't have enough experience with Grammarly to actually give it a fair shake. I have heard from people who English isn't their first language, and they find Grammarly to be very helpful. So, you know, perhaps. Sorry, that's kind of a sitting on the fence answer, I guess. Sorry, there's also more given that it. Oh, so this is someone's comment about the two emails that were side by side. So yes, the second one isn't as example. So someone asks on the second example of the email that there's a line space after each sentence, and isn't that too choppy? So here's my thoughts on that. If it is for a better understanding, I have no problem making a space between effectively each sentence. It's all about the understanding of it or the direction. So because we're trying to have clear, concise emails, if one sentence answers one question or gives one idea, then that's the way to go. Your formatting is much more important, so having white space, than whether or not it's only after one sentence. Okay? Because again, if you go back to what it looked like as a big blob of letters and such, it almost makes you feel like you don't even want to read it to start. I know that's how I feel when I get an email and it's just one solid paragraph and it's, you know, 7, 8, 9 lines. So there's my thoughts on that. So someone says that they use Grammarly and it says to write more passive voice than active. I'm not sure how to do that. What do you recommend? So passive voice has a place. Passive voice is used primarily in when you're giving out bad news, right? You write in a passive voice because you're trying to take that sort of off yourself, like something negative has happened as opposed to you've made something happen. It's also used in instructions in a lot of cases. So, for example, if you look at your car manual for how to do things, it's typically written in passive voice. Emails, not so much. It should all be in active voice. I write almost entirely in active voice. So that would be my take on that. Quillbot, I have no experience with that. If anyone else does, perhaps they could put that in the chat. Info mapping. Has anyone used info mapping? Do you think people write this? Oh, so info mapping. So Ken, I'm assuming what you're talking about is like infographics and that sort of thing. For a lot of people really appreciate that for providing information. Obviously not in day-to-day writing. It doesn't hold a place in report writing, but I think there's definitely a place for it. Presentations primarily is what I would be thinking. And he asks, do I think that people write the same way they talk? Yeah, I definitely do. So that's that can be a good thing or a bad thing, right? But I think when you take a course like the courses we're talking about today, what tends to happen is you become more aware of the common mistakes that you fall into, that you do over and over again. Perhaps it's run-on sentences, for example. Perhaps it's passive voice. And when you write, after a workshop like this, you write with more, I'll call it mindfulness. You're really aware of what you're doing, and you're going to write an email and you're going to think, oh, hold on. I remember Jen talking about writing in like solid block paragraphs and how she hates getting emails like that. Okay, I better put some spaces in here. Where should I do it? Right? So that I think is very helpful. Oh, thank you, Patricia. I'd love to come down to the Caribbean. I'm being offered to go, Tina, so that's a good thing.
I'm going to.
Oh, okay. So
if you're going, I'm going.
You have to take both of us, I guess.
Exactly.
Oh, and absolutely. And Chanel, I hadn't even thought of that. Of course, anyone who's dyslexic, Grammarly would be a great help for them. So sure. And that takes us to the end of the questions, Tina, in the chat. Oh, Patricia says we can both come.
Thank you. Okay, well, that's excellent. Well, you know what? Thank you so much, Jennifer. That was amazing. And I really feel like I'm going to be very mindful of my emails as well. It's truly, but there's one thing. Was there any recommendations for authors? I have my notebook ready.
Oh, yeah. No, I don't.
was like, yay, recommendations.
So if you guys could see my office, I have 3 bookcases, 7 feet tall, and they're full of books. So, you know, I absolutely love to read, and I think I'm a better writer because I read as much as I do. Right?
Well, I guess I'm going to put away my historical
pad
fiction.
Does anybody? Yeah, historical fiction. Yeah, so sorry. It's okay. That's good for the relaxation, right?
Right.
Oh, well, I'm sorry I blew that for you, Tina.
It's all good. But yeah, thanks again. That was really wonderful. And thank you everyone for joining us today. We had a great turnout. Don't forget to follow us on social media if you don't mind. Like and share our posts. We really appreciate that. And you know what? We post all our, upcoming initiatives, and we really appreciate the follow and the likes. So thank you so much, everyone. And if there isn't any more questions, I don't know if there is any more questions, but be safe, everyone, and thank you so much.
All right.
And
Bye,
see you
everybody.
next time.
Bye.
Bye, guys.